Push a P. Yeah, push a P. Turn me up. Turn me up, P. Corners in the paddock, get my piece. Push a P. Cop new drama for my P. We don't want no.
Hello, wonderful people of YouTube. This is Cree. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. As always, I truly do appreciate you. Listen, I know it has been a minute since I have graced y'all with my presence. But I've been over here busy. I haven't got me a new job and just kind of been focusing on that. Cause you know us, some of us lowly YouTubers, we still got to work for a living. You know, we ain't using YouTube as bread and butter just yet. So yeah, I still got a regular job outside of this. But I'm getting my life together and we getting back on track and we gonna do this thing, alright? So here we are, episode 4 of the Messy Auntie series. If you are new here and you are not familiar with the Messy Auntie series, it is a series that I have started where we put a spotlight on our favorite entertainers from today or even yesteryear. People we watched and loved growing up, whether it was listening to their music or watching their movies or TV shows or dancing or whatever. I like to talk about them, you know, give them their flowers, give them their credit and everything. And in these cases, they get a little bit messy. So feel free to watch my previous episodes of the Messy Auntie as well. Now, the one thing that you will notice about the Messy Auntie is that I do not put who I'm talking about in the thumbnail. So you're not going to know who I'm talking about until you actually click on the video. Yeah, clever, right? Yeah, I know. And this lady that we're going to talk about today absolutely needs no introduction. Once I say her name, you're gonna be sucked in. I can already tell you that. So, without further ado, the Messy Auntie that we are going to talk about in today's video is none other than the Queen of Philly, a former Apollo sweetheart, and the godmother of soul herself. Give it up for Patti LaBelle. Come on, y'all. Okay, so I'm going to get through this as much as I can. I am going to challenge myself and make this just a one-part video. So this one might be a long one. I apologize in advance. If it's too long for you, just put a pin on it, pause it, and come back to it later. And if you don't know who Patti LaBelle is, you probably way too young and don't really know nothing about the old school. But that's okay. That's okay. Auntie Cree gonna teach you right now. So just sit on down and take a seat and enjoy this ride. No more wasting time. Let's get right on to it. Patti LaBelle was born Patricia Louise Holt on May 24th, 1944 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Growing up in Philly, she was actually known by Patsy. She was the 4th of 5 children born to parents Henry and Bertha Holt. Bertha is affectionately known by her family and friends as Chubby. She has an older brother named Thomas, 2 older sisters named Vivian and Barbara, and her younger sister, Jacqueline, also known as Jackie. As a child, little Patsy was very quiet, shy, and introverted. She knew she could sing and she knew she had a voice as a child, but she did not like singing in front of people. So she did all of her singing in her room, away from everybody, where she basically sang with a broom or a mop, and her only audience was her toys, her stuffed animals, and her pets, their dog and their cat. Growing up, young Patsy's childhood was pretty rough. While she and her sisters both grew up in the house with both their mother and their father, and as she puts it, she was very much a daddy's girl growing up, there were definitely problems in the house. Her mother was a domestic, clean houses for a living, and her father was a railroad railroad, why can't I say that? Railroad worker and a club performer. So I don't know if he was singer, musician, whatever. But her father was also a very heavy and serious gambler. And when he would come home from gambling all the household finances away, he'd make Chubby. She was like, hell no, we still gotta eat. We still got other bills we gotta pay off. You think I'm about to give you more money after you just done gambled all our money away? Hell no. And of course, that set him off and made him so angry that he put hands on her. And this happened often. And Patty and her sisters would hear it all the time. I'm sorry, I said Patty. It's Patsy. Patsy and her sisters would hear it, and they would be up in their rooms, covering their ears, hiding under the covers, because they just was tired of hearing all the yelling and the fighting and throwing the pots and the pans around and him slapping the mama around. It was crazy. And with all the drama that they had to endure at home, seemingly so that young Patsy's solace was music. When young Patsy was 10, she joined the choir at Beulah Baptist Church. And when she initially joined the choir, she just thought she was going to be singing in the background until the choir director actually heard her sing. Choir director told her, no, baby girl, you're going to be singing lead. I remember young Patsy, she was shy. She was introverted, and she didn't sing in front of people. She was like, I don't want to sing lead. Choir director said, no, baby girl, you got to. Your voice is too strong and too powerful to just be singing in the background. When she sang her first solo in church, we got a standing ovation. And that's when she said she knew this is what she wanted to do. I think I could do this. Also, when she was 10, her parents, Henry and Bertha, aka Chubby, finally decided it was just time to get a divorce, which affected young Patsy and her siblings as well, because like I said, even though there were fights in the household and the dad was putting hands on the mom, she was still a daddy's girl. She still loved her daddy no matter what. And so that really did hurt her and affect her when she wasn't able to see him every day like she used to. He wasn't living in the house every day, but he did come and visit his girls often. But then he started getting a little beside himself after a while and start bringing his lady friends, or whatever flavor of the week, and start bringing them to the house. Like, what you do that for, really? Now you just out of order. You're out of order. But Chubby seemed to have moved on and eventually got to another relationship as well. And unfortunately, that was a horrible time for young Patsy, because this new man, this quote unquote friend that her mother had, was actually S-ing her starting at the age of 12, and actually went on throughout the majority of her teenage years. She did not tell anybody. She was afraid to tell anybody because she felt like, well, maybe it's something that she did. It's her fault. She just didn't understand why he would do something like that to her. I think that relationship ended when Patsy, stop saying Patty, when Patsy was about 16 or 17. So unfortunately, this man had been violating her for years. And I don't know how she made it through that and did not go batshit crazy, or how she didn't let that affect any future relationships. Like I said, sometimes you just, I guess maybe back then, maybe it was a little more headstrong. I don't know, man. I don't know. So the very first group that young Patsy joined was a group that she started with her sister Barbara and two other girls from the neighborhood, called the Elm Tones, because apparently that's the name comes from the neighborhood that they lived in, which was called Elmwood. But unfortunately, that group was short-lived. So there was a local skating rink in the neighborhood, and they used to have like this local talent show open mic every Tuesdays. So Patsy, Barbara, and these two girls, they got together and practiced and rehearsed relentlessly for quite a few weeks to get their performance down because they was gonna go to the skating rink and they thought they was gonna be superstars after that, right? Wrong. They did terrible. So terrible that they got booed. They was booed off of the stage. And young Patsy did not hide her feelings about it at all. She was very pissed and embarrassed and went off on everybody. I believe this is when Priscilla was born. Who is Priscilla, you ask? Well, Priscilla is young Patsy's alter ego. You know how Beyonce got Sasha Fierce. You know, when she on stage, she's Sasha. But then when she off stage, she back to her regular, normal, quiet self. And this is the same thing with young Patsy and Priscilla. I think this was the beginning of that. So needless to say, that was the first and last performance of the Elm Tones. So after the Elm Tones broke up, and she was about 15 at this time. Yeah, I think I may have gotten the ages wrong in the beginning. So I think when this all happened, she was about 15. So not long after the Elm Tones, after their grand opening, grand closing, she joined another group called the Ordettes. And the Ordettes consisted of her and 3 other kids from school. So for a few months, they practiced songs and everything. They usually did their practice at young Patsy's house. But for whatever reason, this one particular day, they did not perform, or they did not rehearse rather, at Patsy's house. And they did it at one of the other girls' houses. This move proved to be a life-changing experience, and let me tell you why. So on this particular day that they were rehearsing at the other girl's house, the girl's mother had a visitor coming over. This visitor was apparently a family friend, and his name is Walt Overby. So while Mr. Overby and the girl's mother is sitting in the living room chit-chatting, they're hearing the singing going on, which I believe they were rehearsing in the basement. And Walt Overby was like, "You got the radio on?" And the mother was like, "No, that's just my daughter and her friends. You know, they started a singing group, so they downstairs rehearsing." And so he's listening. It's like, can I go downstairs and listen to them? They sound really good. So he went downstairs, listened to them, and he was like, "Look, I'm so sorry for interrupting y'all. I know y'all doing y'all thing, but I just heard y'all upstairs and y'all were phenomenal. My neighbor is a music manager and is currently looking for a girl group to manage. If you girls are interested and are serious about this, I can set up a meeting so y'all can audition for him." So Patsy and the rest of the Ordettes were ecstatic. They said, "Yes, hell yeah, set that up." The family, friends, and neighbor that they auditioned for is named Bernard Montague. I believe Mr. Montague was a car salesman initially, but then he quit that job so he could be a manager, so he could be a music manager. And he had already kind of managed a few acts around the neighborhood, so he had a pretty good reputation already. So they were pretty excited to be auditioning for him. Patsy and the girls auditioned as the Ordettes. He loved them. He wanted to sign them to a management deal right away. So he spent the next couple of years working with them, getting them local gigs around the town, even a few out-of-town gigs here and there, just to get them exposure and just to get them out there. His wife also helped out with the management process and getting their costumes and the hair and makeup together. They would chaperone, when they had to, take them to these out-of-town gigs. Everything was on the up and up until 2 of the members left the group because they got married. And that's one thing that I do not understand. Why do you have to stop doing what you're doing just because you get married? Why do you have to stop your career? Especially like if you're doing something like entertainment. When you get married, you just automatically that's over, that's done? I never understood why people do that. I mean, I guess back then, this is late 50s, early 60s. I guess, having a career and a marriage and a husband was a no-no. I guess that's something only men did. I don't know. But I'm like, Why couldn't they just still be in the group? And then one of the people that got married, they married Bernard Montague's son. So I'm like, it's still in the family. Why can't she still be in the group? But whatever. So after those two members left, Mr. Montague brought in two new girls that came from another group that was now disbanded, and brought them into the Ordettes. And those two young ladies were Sarah Dash and Nona Hendrix. Their vocals were superb. The chemistry between all the girls were outstanding. They got along great. They sang together great. They blended well and everything. So Mr. Montague felt that it was time to step things up to the next level and try to get them an actual record deal with a record company. Patsy, along with all the other girls in the group, they're all still in high school. They're all like between the ages of like 16 and 18 years old. So in order to go through this audition, they all had to have their parents' approval, right? And I believe this is where they lost the third member, because the third member ended up leaving because their father, who is very religified and was very much a man of God, and was like, oh no, honey, you will not serve two masters, not while you're living under my roof. So either you gonna go God's way, or you gonna go the highway. If you ain't gonna be singing God's music, then you don't need to be living up under my roof. That's not what we're about. That's not what we're gonna do. So needless to say, she left. And then they were back down to 3 members again. So now everybody's panicking because they got this audition coming up, you know, with the Bluebell record, and they don't have a 4th person. Somehow, some way, Montague knew somebody that knew a girl in New Jersey that could sing really good. So they sent this girl from New Jersey to come down to audition for him. She auditioned and she nailed it, and she got in the group. That young lady was known as Cindy Birdsong. So the foursome is finally complete. You got Patsy, Nona, Sarah, and Cindy. So they set everything up for them to audition for Bluebell Records, which was owned by Harold B. Robinson. So Bluebell Records is actually a car dealership by day and a recording studio by night. And the recording studio and the office is in the basement of the car dealership. So in 1962, when Patsy is 18, they go to audition for Harold Robinson. He takes one look at them, takes one look at Patsy, and says no. He did not like the way young Patsy looked because she was dark-skinned. He considered her unattractive, not marketable. He's like, I'm not going to be able to sell no records if she's leading a song. That's not going to happen. And Bernard was like, look, we done set up this audition. We done came all the way here. They done worked very hard to get here. Can you at least hear one song? Harold B. Robinson agreed and said, okay, they could sing one song. I'll let them sing, let them do what they do. And then after that, yeah, they got to go. So the Ordettes audition. Young Patsy did her lead, opened her mouth and sang her song. And after it was over with, Harold had a change of tune. He was completely blown away by young Patsy's voice. He said, yes, definitely, I absolutely want to work with y'all. So, on April 8th, 1962, Patsy and the Ordettes signed to Bluebell Records. The first order of business, however, was we need to change this name because Patsy and the Ordettes, I don't think that's gonna work. So Harold changed Patsy's name, so she went from Patsy Holt to Patti LaBelle. LaBelle meaning the beautiful one, and changed the name of the Ordettes to the Bluebells. So this is when Patti LaBelle was born, and this was her initial introduction into show business. I'm not going to do this in any specific order, so I'm just going to kind of just throw the mess in here into the story because it's just kind of intertwined with everything. So just bear with me. Just walk with me, y'all. So shortly after signing with Bluebell Records, Patty now, she dropped out of school. She decided to pursue singing full time. She knew she was not going to go to college. So it's just like, why do I need to finish high school and get a diploma? I'm going to be singing for the rest of my life. So she dropped out of school. Her senior year, a semester away from graduation. Who the hell does that? Why? Why do you do that? Drop out your senior year. You done made it all this time, but you're going to drop out your senior year right before you supposed to grad. You know what? Let's move on. Let's move on. So Harold Robinson, once he signed them, he immediately went to work on building them up to be a more reputable group. He started sending them out on more gigs, school dances, sock hops, family events, what have you. And then they eventually got invited to do the performance of a lifetime for the Apollo Theater. Yeah, and they were nervous because, even back then, the Apollo, about the Apollo, you know their reputation. If you go out there and your performance ain't up to par, you will get your ass booed off stage. And then they go send the Sandman out there and escort your ass off and everything else. But Patty, she wasn't scared. She was ready. She was ready for him, y'all. So they make it to the Apollo. They perform their song, which if I'm not mistaken, I do believe that the song was the song that they were pretty much known for, which was I Sold My Heart to the Junk Man. They left the stage because that was the only song that they were supposed to sing. But the audience loved them so much that they brought them back out for an encore. So then they had to sing another song. And they were invited to come back. And they came back on a regular basis. They gained so much respect and popularity that Patty and the Bluebells were deemed the Apollo sweethearts. And also, during their time with the Apollo, they were approached by two teenage boys that wanted to start a Bluebells fan club. One of those teenage boys would turn out to be the future soul balladeer and crooner himself, Luther Vandross. Luther stayed in the Apollo, didn't he? It seemed like every time I read something about a singer that was at the Apollo, Luther was there. I want to sing with you. I want to work with you. I want to start you a fan club. I know when people saw him walking around in the Apollo, they was like, "Oh Lord, here go this mom. You here again? Dang." So in 1963, they scored their first hit single, which is a song called Down the Aisle, made it to the top 40. In 1964, they garnered their second hit, which is called You'll Never Walk Alone. Okay, so we're going to fast forward here a little bit. So in 1965, after they were with Bluebell Records for a few years, they left Bluebell and went to Atlantic Records, which is headed by Jerry Wexler. Once they got over to Atlantic, they started going overseas, going to Europe, spending time in London, getting to know the music scene over there, because it was around this time the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, the whole British invasion thing was happening. And the British rockers, they was really into rock and roll and R&B music. So yeah, they was getting shine and they was getting exposure and everything, but they were still kind of low on the totem pole. They weren't garnering any hits for Atlantic. They still are small fries compared to their counterparts of Motown. The Supremes, the Temptations, the Vandellas, the Chiffons, all of these other groups that's like out there that everybody knows, and Patty and the Bluebells, they just kind of trying to make their mark, and they can't quite do it because all these other big groups are overshadowing them. That actually brings me to my first messy moment with Diana Ross. So as most of us already know, Diana Ross and the Supremes was everything. They were like the Destiny's Child of the 60s. And the Bluebells got to do quite a few performances and dates with the Supremes. So they were in close quarters with them quite often. But Diana and them, they was some dirty heifers. They really was. First, the Supremes start stealing the Bluebell style, meaning that, they would copy their looks, copy their costumes, their hair, and all of that. And the Supremes would usually go on first. So the audience got to see what they wore first. And so then when the Bluebells followed behind them wearing the exact same thing, then they got looked at as copycats when they were the ones that came up with the style first. This, of course, pissed Patty off. Because Patty like, hey man, look, we spent our hard-earned money on getting these costumes and these wigs together. And this is all we have. We don't have money to just keep going to the store and getting something new. Hey, we ain't got it like that, bitch. We broke. But child, look, that ain't even the worst. That's not even the worst that the Supremes did to the Bluebell. So, in 1967, so a few hours before Patty, Sarah, and Nona are geared to perform in New York, Cindy is nowhere to be found. They don't know where she is. They ain't heard from her, nothing. Then their manager, Bernard Montague, gets a phone call from Cindy. And it's Cindy basically calling in saying, hey, I'm not going to be able to make it. No, I'm not sick. Everything's fine. Everything's cool. I'm just not going to be able to perform tonight. And that was that. They didn't find out until like a few days later, and they heard it in the press that Cindy left the group to go to the Supremes. Bitch, I know you lying. I know you lying. Turns out that all of them performances that they did, that the Bluebells did with the Supremes, where they was stealing all their clothes, they were eyeing Cindy. They was already plotting and scheming at that time to try to get her from the Bluebells, which means they already knew that they was gonna get rid of Florence Ballard, which is who Cindy ended up replacing. They knew, and Diana knew. Oh, dirty heifer. Man, look, boy. Patty and them was pissed. You hear me? Pissed. Because none of them knew. None of them knew what was happening. And for them to find out the way that they did through the press and not through Cindy herself, Patty was ready to put that Philly beat down on her. Or should I say, Priscilla was ready to put that Philly beat down on her. They in New York gearing up for a show trying to figure out where the hell Cindy at. Cindy already in Detroit. Barry and Diana, both dirty as hell. Now, they didn't speak with her for a while. They were understandably extremely pissed off. But Patty did say that after a few years, Cindy did reach back out to the ladies to apologize for what happened. So Barry Gordy and them flew Cindy to Detroit for a quote-unquote meeting. But then when she got there, they basically cornered her and was like, look, we need you to replace Florence in the Supremes. We got a few dates coming up, and if you say yes, we need you right now. Ain't no time to go home and think about it. Ain't no time to go home and pray about it. It's either now or never. What is it gonna be? You ain't gotta call the girls and tell them you ain't gonna be in the group no more. We'll take care of that. And just like that, she was in the Supreme. She had no choice. I mean, if you had that opportunity, I mean, what would you do? Lord, if this don't sound familiar, if this don't sound like some Destiny's Child stuff, now we see where Beyonce's daddy possibly learned it from, huh? So Cindy and Patty and Sarah and Nona, they eventually buried the hatchet, and that was that. Patty has also since mended fences with Diana as well. That was drama they endured when they was all young women. They are much older now, and that is now water under the bridge. Next issue that I want to talk about. This one is a bit of a trigger warning. I'm just letting you know that now, because it does have to do a little bit with SA and Grape. So we're going to go back to 1962 when the Bluebells were just starting out. Patty had an unfortunate encounter with Jackie Wilson. So on this particular night, they were set to perform. She was walking backstage and she was heading up to the curtains to take place with the rest of the girls because they only had like maybe a few short minutes before they were set to go on stage. So while she's backstage making her way to the group, somebody grabs her from behind and whispers in her ear, "I've been waiting all night for you." Turns out it was Jackie Wilson. And before Patty could react, Jackie Wilson had his hand over her mouth so she could not scream. And then someone else, which was a gentleman that was apparently associated with him, grabbed her by her legs and they proceeded to drug her into his dressing room. They groped and fondled her. They tried to violently undress her. She said, "I did not want that. I don't know what made them think that I wanted that, but in that moment, all I could do was scream. Scream as loud as I can at the top of my lungs." And we all know, Patty loud. Patty is loud. And she eventually screamed so loud that it ran Jackie and the other dude up out the room. They hurried up and got the hell on up out of Dodge. So she left in the room by herself trying to make sense of what happened. But in that moment, she had to hurry up and get herself together and hurry up and find the rest of the girls. Because like I said, they was getting ready to go on stage in like a matter of minutes. Needless to say, she has never gotten over that. She said that she was a huge fan of Jackie until that moment, and she never looked at him the same ever again. And years later, after he passed away in 1984, she was asked to be a part of the musical tribute that they had for him at that time, and she declined. She said no. And she said people looked at her. People felt a kind of way about that, like, it's Jackie Wilson. Why you don't want to do no tribute with Jackie Wilson? But they didn't know the story. And apparently nobody knew anything about this story until she brought it out in her autobiography in the 90s. So that was like 30 years that she held that in. Child, like I said, you done got a essay by Jackie Wilson, got essay years before by your mama's friend. It's just, ooh-wee, the things that we as women have to endure. But thankfully, she was able to heal from that and didn't let these unfortunate experiences deter her from ever having relationships in the future. So hats off to her for that. So speaking of future relationships, let's dig into Patty's love life for a little minute. I know I'm kind of going all over the place, but just kind of go with me. Just go with me here for a little minute. So Patty had boyfriends and things like that growing up, but her mind was always on the music. Her focus was on being a star. So when she was growing up, her and her sisters was singing in church and everything. According to Patty, none of her sisters could sing. Her sisters were not singers. That was more her thing. But there was also a gentleman, a young man that sang in this church choir that actually had a crush on Patty's sister, Barbara. He was hanging around them quite a bit, and this young man's name was Armstead Edwards. So in April of 1963, Patty was at home, chilling, relaxing. She had just came from off the road, and she was just tired, and all she was worried about was getting in her bubble bath and drinking her beer. But before she could do any of that, there was a knock on her door, because this is 63, so she was still actually living at home with her mom. So she gets a knock on the door. She opens the door, and it's Armstead. He's looking for Barbara. Barbara, unfortunately, was unavailable because she was entertaining some company at that moment. The issue was, it was Armstead's 21st birthday. He was supposed to go on a date that night with another young lady, and they was going to go see the Temptations. But for whatever reason, that girl stood up. So he had came over there to see Barbara, to see if Barbara wanted to go. Barbara, she already hugged up with somebody else, and he got this extra ticket. He like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. But even though she had her bubble bath and beer waiting on her, she felt sorry for him and was like, you know what, I'll go with you. So she gets herself ready, and they go see the Temptations. They just friends. They not kicking it like that. She knows that he like my older sister, so I'm like, I'm just going with him because I feel bad for him. So while they at this show watching the Temptations, apparently one of the Temptations is watching her too. And that Temptation happens to be Otis Williams. Yes, that Otis.
Ain't nobody coming to see you, Otis.
So after the show, after they've been googling eyes at each other all night, Patty convinces Armstead to go to Otis, be her wingman, get Otis to come over there and talk to her and everything. She said, I had him to do it because if he did it, then Otis would know that that's not my man. So apparently they exchanged numbers that night, and whenever he came into Philly, he would call Patty up and they would link up and do whatever. I don't know how serious this romance was, because it seems like, yeah, y'all don't talk to each other unless he comes in town. But then I'm also confused, because I'm like, this is the early 60s, because I'm like, wasn't Otis still married? Because he was married at one point, right? Because I've seen the Temptations movie, Lord knows how many times. He was married to somebody else, or maybe they got divorced at that point. But then I also remember hearing about Otis around this same the Motown review time, that he was kicking it with Florence Ballard. So I'm like, how serious were y'all really? Were y'all really serious? It don't sound like y'all were. It sounds more like you was just his Philly from Philly. But I mean, I don't know though. I mean, apparently the cookie must have been good enough, because he was sure ready to put a ring on it. Matter of fact, he did put a ring on it. I want you to be Mrs. Otis Williams. And she happily accepted. Initially, she happily accepted. But then once she had to come to realize of what was going to come with that, then she started thinking twice about that. Because Otis said, once we get married, baby, you're going to have to stop singing. You will be a Bluebell no longer. And you're going to have to move to Detroit. And, she was just like, I can't do that. I can't do that. Me not singing for the rest of my life and just being a housewife in Detroit, knee deep in babies and diapers. No, that's not what I want to do. And anytime she and Otis had issues, she would confide in not only her girlfriends, but then she would also confide in Armstead on everything that's going on. He was the ear to listen and the shoulder to cry on. But even then, she still didn't look at him like that. He was very much friend-zoned at this point. But she ultimately called it off, because in that moment, she realized that she really didn't love Otis. She was more so in love with the fact of what he was, which was a temptation, and not necessarily who he was. I think she was more caught up in the fact that this famous celebrity wanted to be with her. So they called the whole thing off, gave the ring back, and he understood. He like, it's all good. Shoot, I still got Florence. Shoot. So once Patty and Otis called it quits, young Armstead kind of took that opportunity to shoot his shot. And Patty was shocked. She was floored, because she was like, you want to date me? I thought you wanted my sister. What about Barbara? But he was like, what about Barbara? And see, Armstead is a different type of dude. He's not out there in the streets and flashy, and he's not trying to be famous and out there like that. He's an educator. He's a nerd. He got a degree in education, and he was a high school principal, I believe, and all that when they got together. So it was a total opposite of somebody that you would have expected her to be, with total opposite from Otis. But she accepted it, and they did start dating. Roughly about a year into their courtship, he proposed to her. In fact, he proposed to her on 3 different occasions, and she turned him down each and every time. But after that 3rd time, he was like, you know what, I'm not gonna ask you no more. This clearly is not what you want to do. And I don't believe that she initially didn't, love Armstead, but I also believe that she probably didn't want to be put in that box, wanted to be stifled or hindered, not being able to have her career as like what Otis tried to do. And I think maybe that was the reason that she turned him down. But after that last proposal and she said no, some time went by and she realized, I do want to marry him. I do love him. He's the best man for me. And Nona and Sarah was like, well, what you doing? Go get your man. Go get your boo. Go get him, girl. But Patty was like, well, he done already proposed to me. He ain't gonna propose to me no more. And they was like, well, shoot, go propose to him. And that's exactly what she did. She went to Armstead's house one night, knocked on his door, and was like, will you marry me? But old Armstead did her dirty. Armstead was like, let me think about it. And kept her waiting for a couple of days until he finally accepted it. Yeah, Armstead, that's how you do it. Keep on her toes. But in fact, they didn't wait that long. They actually got married on July 23rd, 1969, exactly 5 days after she proposed to him. So they wasn't wasting no time back then, okay? Wasn't no 5-10 year long engagements. Wasn't none of that going on. Okay, so we're gonna put a pin on the love life for a minute and let's go back to the Bluebell fiasco, okay? So after Cindy Bird's song's very abrupt departure from the Bluebells in 1967, they really had to step back and regroup and kind of figure out what they wanted to do, what direction they wanted to take the group. They ultimately decided. At first, it was like, well, are we gonna find another fourth? We're gonna try to audition another fourth. I believe initially that was their plan, but ultimately they decided to just continue on as a trio. I believe a lot of that has to do with the fact that since the group's initial inception back in like the early 60s, they went through so many lineup changes, so many people leaving, and they're here for a little while and then they have to leave. And so with that, along with Cindy just upping and leaving, they just didn't want to go through that again. And they're like, well, it's just us three. We been here. We ride or die. We just gonna continue on with it as a trio. Maybe we'll have better success that way, because you have to realize at this point they've been singing for years. They've had albums. They've had moderate success, but they haven't had any hits. They have not garnered any hits. And that's one thing about the music industry that I find very interesting. You know, back then, you could be on a label and put out a number of albums and not get a hit. But the labels didn't seem like that they gave up on you that much then. They're going to keep churning you out there until you get a hit at some point. I noticed they did that with a lot of artists back then. They did that with the Temptations. They was on Motown for quite a few years before they got their first hit with The Way You Do the Things You Do. Like even with Marvin Gaye. Marvin Gaye didn't really start popping off until he started doing the stuff with Tammy Terrell. And then after Tammy Terrell died, you know, when he did the What's Going On album, that, you know, that's kind of like when people started noticing him. And also with Aretha. Aretha was with Columbia when she first started back in, 1962? No, 1960, when she was 18, and she was a jazz singer, and she done put out Lord knows how many albums with Columbia and never garnered no hits. But the minute she got over to Atlantic Records in 1967, then that's when her career popped off. And ironically, the beginning of her success with Atlantic was the beginning of the end of the Bluebell success with Atlantic. Because pretty much after Cindy left, the label really didn't really want to mess with him like that no more. They kind of put the Bluebells to the wayside. And then, like I said, once Aretha came on and blew up and blew everybody away, then that just put the Bluebells further and further in the back of the line. And then they got dropped in 1969. And then ultimately, their longtime manager, Bernard Montague, ended his relationship with them as well. So here it is, 1969. Patty should be on top of the world. Got her a new man, new husband. But now we ain't got no group. Now we all know what the hell was going to happen with this group. Which brings me to my next interesting story that I got about Miss Patricia, Miss Patsy. So after Bernard Montague left and resigned as their manager, they went through a couple of managers, but it was one manager in particular. I believe his name is Leroy. He became their new manager. He's a little bit on the shady side. He was Sarah Dash's boyfriend at the time, and he was also a PIMP. Then I'm a motherfucking PIMP. I don't know if YouTube got guidelines out there, so I'm just gonna keep it safe. So the dude Leroy, he was a cool manager, I guess, for the time that he was there. He did do a lot of backhanded, shady dealings to get them the gigs and the things that they were able to get. They still wasn't really making no money and still wasn't garnering any hits. It seemed like the only hits that he was giving them, well, he was giving them to Sarah because he was apparently whooping her up and down the street all the time. In fact, one time it got so bad, him and Sarah got into a fight so bad that, Patty had to step in, trying to defuse the situation and trying to stick up for her friend. Pippin Leroy apparently wasn't having that because he pulled his piece out, his pow out, and put it in Patty's face and threatened to unalive her. And Patty was like, well, what is unaliving me gonna do, sir? If you take out me and Sarah, who you gonna manage? You ain't gonna be nobody's manager or pimp because your ass is gonna be in jail. So think wisely before you pull that trigger, sir. So with that, he thought about it and decided not to unalive them. But at that point, they was like, yeah, we need to get rid of him. We need to get the hell up out of here. So eventually, once they fired Leroy and was finally free from his reigns and his craziness, and they brought on Vicky Wickham as their new manager. Now, Vicky Wickham played a very pivotal role in revamping their career and helping to give them that style and image that they're most known for now. The eccentric space suits, the spray painted hair, the out there costumes. First, Patty wasn't with it. He was like, I ain't about to go out here trying to look all crazy. But Vicky's thing was, this is gonna grab the audience's attention. You get their attention with the costumes and then reel them in more with your voice. So they developed this new look, this new sound, and this new name, because now they went from Patti LaBelle and the Bluebells and just changed their name to LaBelle. So they spent the next few years kind of regrouping and reinventing themselves. So they went from this 60s girl group to this 70s psychedelic glam rock soul group. And the girls wasn't really with it at first, but eventually all that hard work paid off, because in 1974, not only did they sign a new deal with Epic Records after being kicked to the curb by Atlantic, but they also released the album Nightbirds, which gave them their biggest and possibly their only hit to date, Lady Marmalade. But unfortunately, the good times did not last, as the group would ultimately disband 2 years later in 1976 after Nona Hendryx had a severe nervous breakdown while they were performing. And she was in horrible state. She wasn't in no condition to be in nobody's group. So after that happened, that they broke up. Now it's been said that allegedly that she made advances towards Patti and Patti rejected her, and that's what caused the nervous breakdown. But I don't know that to be true. I can neither confirm nor deny those allegations. So I'm not putting that out there. That's just the rumor that was swirling, that I've seen online and stuff, but I don't know that that's true. So you take that with a grain of salt. Take that how you want to. So after the group disbanded in 1976, Epic decided to keep Patti as a solo artist. She released her debut solo effort in 1977, which garnered her first hit, You Are My Friend. It was also during this time she was doing more acting. She was on Broadway, started making brief cameos in TV shows and things like that. And after she did 4 albums with Epic, then she left there and went to Philadelphia International. And it was her second album with Philly International, I'm in Love Again. That's the album that kind of started putting her on people's radars. Because on that album was the song, Loving, Need, and Want You, Baby. Loving, Need, and Want You, Baby. And then the other song, which ain't even her song no more. We might as well just go on and say that's Kiki Wyatt's song, If Only You Knew. If only you knew. Okay, I ain't about to do all that, child. I ain't gonna do it. That's all you get for free. And I mean, the rest is history from that. I mean, her career pretty much only went up from that point. What's your favorite Patti LaBelle album? Let me know down in the comments. I think my favorite album by Patti is Burning. That's the one that came out in the early 90s, and it had the song Somebody Loves You, Baby. It had that song and the When You've Been Blessed, which is a gospel song. That was probably my favorite album by her. I'm just gonna talk about some little tidbits that I done discovered about her. It ain't gonna be in no particular order for real. As most of us old heads know, Patty is also an actress as well as a singer. In my opinion, her acting is just as good as her singing. I don't know why she didn't get more into acting, because you know she played Dwayne Wayne's mama on A Different World, and then she had her own show. Remember, she had that show Out All Night that only lasted for one season, because you know it had Morris Chestnut, Dwayne Martin, Vivica Fox, back when they were still kind of unknown. But interestingly enough, what I didn't know is that she almost got two roles that are well known now. She almost got the role of Suge Avery in The Color Purple in the original one in 1985, and she also was almost up for the role as Oda Mae Brown in Ghost, which was Whoopi Goldberg's character. And I think that would have been good with her. I could totally see Patty killing that role in Ghost and saying that famous line that Whoopi was known for, and killing it.
Molly, you in danger, girl.
Okay, so here go another funny story that I read about that time that she had to check Auntie Dionne Warwick. So Patty, Dionne, and Auntie Gladys, they sang together on this HBO special back in April of 1986 called Sisters in the Name of Love. By this time in 86, Patty has definitely made her mark in the industry. And by this point, she's also kind of been known to, I guess you want to say, showboat, out-sing other people, especially in live performances. You know, when Priscilla comes out and she rolling all on the floor and kicking off her shoes, y'all know how she do. But anyway, for this performance, Dionne kind of pulled her to the side and said, "Hey, dog, I know how you get down. We know you do what you do, but for this performance, can you just kind of scale it down some? You know, don't just be all hooting and hollering and just running all over the stage. We just want to keep it cute and keep it simple, okay?" And Patty was just like, oh, okay. I mean, I guess. I mean, she felt the way about it, but I mean, she agreed because, you know, Dionne her girl or whatever, right? But during one of them rehearsal sessions, you know, Patty got a little carried away. Kind of turned into Effie White a little bit and just started kind of over-singing over everybody. And Auntie Dionne wasn't having it. This time, Auntie Dionne said something to her in front of everybody, didn't just pull her to the side and was like, "Look, you doing all that singing too loud and can't nobody else hear themselves. I can't even hear myself. Gladys can't hear herself." And Gladys in the background like, "Nah, dog, don't put me in it. I ain't got nothing to do with that." And Patty was just tired of it. She was just tired of everybody talking about it. She was like, "Look, this is what I do. This is what the hell I do. Y'all knew this when y'all asked me to come and join y'all perform. I'm not about to tone down and be quiet for y'all because that's what y'all want. Y'all know this is what I do. If this was going to be a problem for y'all, why the hell did y'all ask me to perform in the first damn place?"
What the fuck am I doing here?
Shockingly, it wasn't no all-out brawling. They wasn't putting hands on each other. But I mean, you know, like, we in our 40s. I ain't about to do all that with you. But apparently that was a one and done. That was they only spat. You know, they hugged it out, made up. They had an understanding. They cool now. They still homies to this day. Next one on the list. I absolutely, positively could not make a video about Miss Patty without talking about this incident.
Aretha Franklin.
Now, how many people looked at that clip and was like, "Damn, Aretha, what Patty do to you?" But Patty debunked the rumors that there was shade or anything like that between them and said that we got it all wrong.
You sang with Aretha when?
Oh, many times. Many times.
You mean on stage you sang with her?
Oh, yes. We did a few shows together.
And
the last thing we did was the White House.
You did? I remember that because I asked you about that because it seemed like she didn't say hello to you when you walked by. It seemed like, it was online, it seemed like she snubbed you or something.
No, she really didn't. I think she was going through her illness at that time. Which she's been sick, I think, for a while. And
right.
So she was snapping at people, but not particularly me, I don't think. My feelings were hurt, but I really understood later.
I mean, hopefully it's truth and hopefully it's all love. It was all love between them. Because I don't know if you know, I mean, I know, but Auntie Aretha, she was definitely, not only was she the queen of soul, but she was absolutely the queen of petty. So another thing that I kind of want to talk about or kind of touch on a little bit is the issue that certain people on social media had with her when she outed Luther Vandross. When she was on Watch What Happens Live, this was some years ago, maybe, I don't know, 2017, 2018, when she was on, what's that child's name? Not Anderson Cooper. Andy Cohen. Yeah, when she was on Watch What Happens with Andy Cohen, and he low-key, knew what he was doing. He kind of snuck the question in there very matter-of-factly, and so, she just talked about it matter-of-factly. In a sense, kind of officially outing him as, being LGBTQ.
Struggle with the idea of coming out publicly. Was that something that you talked about at all?
We talked about it. It was basically he did not want his mother to be, although she might have known, but he wasn't going to come out and say this to the world. And he had a lot of lady fans, and he told me that he just didn't want to upset the world.
He was known as he was a singer of love songs.
Yeah, but it was hard for him.
Yeah.
It was hard. What?
And I don't know why people got so mad about that. Cause it was like, well, he's not here to defend himself, and if he wanted out, he would have. And it's like, come on, come up off of it, y'all. It's not like she said anything that no one knew. Most of us have kind of known and have kind of figured it out decades ago, years before he passed. We kind of already figured that out. So it's not like she said anything that was shocking. And I guarantee you that if Luther was still alive right now, he probably would have been out already. The main reason that he wasn't out, when he was alive is because back then it still was not socially acceptable to be gay or bi or lesbian openly in the entertainment business. And the fact that he didn't want to upset and disappoint his mother. Luther grew up in a very religious, very devout Christian household. His mother was a true woman of God. She was a minister. I don't know if she was a pastor, but I know she was at least a minister. And anybody knows that when you growing up in the church, you could be a serial killer, a thief. You could be anything in the world, but Lord, do not be gay. So back then, it wasn't the right time for him to come out. But everybody knew. It's not like she said anything that no one knew. They was practically BFFs for like 40 years at that point, or close to 40 years, probably over 40 years. And so I don't believe that she really said anything that he would not have wanted out there at that point in time. So leave her alone. Y'all always gotta bully some damn body online. Dang. Okay, so let's go back to the love life real quick. I said this was gonna be long, y'all. I said this was gonna be long. If y'all can sit through 6-hour live streams, y'all can sit through my little video. So Patty and Armstead, like I said, they got married in 1969. They had their son Zuri in 1973. Once they got married, Armstead did become Patty's manager. So he quit being a high school principal to become his wife's manager. And why is that? Why is it that like when you are a singer and when you get married, your husband automatically becomes your manager? Even they don't have no kind of management or music experience at all, but all of a sudden they're your manager, which is not always a good thing, because a lot of times they will end up jacking up your career even more than it was before they first signed on to become your manager. Ask Mickey Howard how that worked out for her. And ask Aretha, because Aretha's first husband, Lord, he wasn't no joke. And even after she divorced him, her baby daddy, who she got with after she divorced her first husband, he became her manager. But I'm like, you ain't got no kind of music experience, so what are you doing here, sir? But he was her manager and remained her manager up until their unfortunate separation in 2000 and ultimate divorce in 2003. And I believe as of now, currently her son Zuri is her manager. In addition to Zuri, she also has 4 more children that she adopted as well. She adopted 2 kids from a family that she knew in their neighborhood in Philly. And then she also adopted her niece and nephew from her younger sister, Jackie, after she passed away from cancer back in 1989. And that is another very interesting and sad story about Patty, is that she practically has outlived her entire family, her immediate family. So she lost practically everybody in her family with the exception of her older brother in about a span of about 15 years. She lost her mom. Actually, no, she lost her oldest sister, Vivian. She lost her in 1975 from lung cancer. She lost her mom to diabetes in 1978. She lost her older sister, Barbara, from colon cancer in 1982. And then she lost both her last sister, Jackie, and her father 3 months apart in 1989 from breast cancer and Alzheimer's, respectively. She also lost her best friend around that time too. Like before Jackie passed, she lost her friend Claudette. And the crazy thing is that all of her sisters died before the age of 44. None of them made it past 44. Or should I say, none of them made it to 44, because I think Jackie died just maybe a week or so before her 44th birthday. If she didn't do nothing else in this world, she would have been a wonderful grief counselor. Cause baby, I don't know how she made it through that. That was by the grace of God and prayer and whatever, because that's a lot of death. That's a lot to deal with in a very short span of time. In less than 15 years? Oh my God. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. Let me ask y'all this. Before I get off of here. Did y'all know, and I don't know how true this is, but I've seen this in quite a few articles, but did y'all know that sometime after her divorce from Armstead, that she had a thing going on with Keith Sweat? Did y'all know that? What? And this wasn't no one and done, no one time thing. They was actually lovers. Did y'all know that? I seen that and was and damn near passed out. Apparently Miss Patty out here being a cougar child, cause she was also dating this other guy that's a musician. I think his name is Eric Seitz. And this may have been about 10 years ago or so. Cause like she was like in her early 70s and he was like in his early 40s. I'm like, okay, Patty, well, you need to, child, look here, all I can say is Auntie Patty she must got that magic. That's all I'm gonna say on that. Before I get on up out of here, let's look at a few other little messy clips from Auntie Patty and get a nice good little chuckle off of her.
You know you better. It's Christmas. We're my background singers. Woo! Oh baby, and there's the wrong words on the cue cards. I don't know the song. This Christmas, I'm gonna have them all I can. Because I don't have the right words and I have no background singers. Oh, I don't. Woo! This is gonna be a very Merry Christmas for you and me. But if you get fresh up in here, I'm gonna have to kick your ass. Alright? I can't say it no better. So I want you to know I'm not one of those little skinny girls. I'm not one of those little skinny cute good singers. We have a lot of them in this business. They're cute, they're little, and they sing well. Like little Mariah, little Whitney, little Celine. Well, I'm Big Patty, honey. I'm here to represent.
No, baby. Let me say something. Did I say, I'm good, B, I got this. I got this. Did I say I was 71 years young, right? I am not Nicki Minaj or that little Molly. Oh, no. Get off of my goddamn stage, bitch. And stay off. Put him out of the building.
These are made with... You can touch them with your hands.
That is true. 2 kinds of cake mix. And also, one of the little secrets I use Diet Hot Cocoa packets to make to really amp up the chocolate flavor.
Diet Hot Cocoa. What is Patty saying over there?
She is causing trouble.
Yeah, no, what makes you think I could eat the paper, boo?
Eat the paper. No paper. Paper bad, cake good.
Okay, next.
I don't want to eat the paper.
I didn't want to eat the paper. What's wrong with her?
Okay, again, the frosting is made out of fat-free whipped cream, marshmallow.
The girl thought I was going to eat the paper on the cupcake.
That? Y'all saw that?
Wait, I wanted to slap that heifer so hard. She said, Miss LaBelle, don't eat the paper. I said, what's wrong with you, boo? I don't eat paper.
Has Patty ever called you about something?
Yes, she did. She sure did.
What'd she say?
She called me a heifer. She called me. She said, hello. I was like, hello. And she said, you listen here, little heifer. I said, who is this? She said, Patty said, oh, well, hello. Where are you, sugar? And she said, I can't sing my song no more because of you. I said, what? She's like, I can never sing my song again because of you. I was like, yes, you can, girl. You Patty down. She said, yeah, well, you're going to make it hard for me now. I was like, yeah, right. But that was such an honor. And she called me a heifer. I was like, yes, thank you.
If anybody know Patty LaBelle, tag her in the video. Patty! Whoa! Yeah. Bitch, I turned into Patty. You turned into Patty after eating this.
Hit. And it was a hit. I had no clue it meant, will you sleep with me tonight?
Really?
I didn't know. No, I had no clue.
You didn't know what it was?
It was
Did
about
you know
a lady
French?
of the evening. No,
Yeah.
I didn't know French.
You didn't know French?
No. I didn't know no French. I knew it was a hit.
Really? Because when you sang it, I would have swore you knew French.
No, honey.
Girl, I could do
I can't do that click. Do the click. Girl, I've been trying to do it for 10 years.
I swear. Bitch, you feel like Patty LaBelle after eating this. Go to Walmart and buy the Patty LaBelle pie. Patty, bitch, you are my friend. I never knew until then, but I know now. Ah!
I changed my life because of you. I feel so free. I feel so happy.
Once again, let's give it up to Auntie Patty. She is 80 years young this year and still looking good, still out here working. Shoot, she ain't even got to do no music no more. She's selling pie, the patty pies and the peach cobblers and the frozen food line and the cookbooks. Shoot, she don't need to sing no more. She good. Let's continue to give her love and her flowers while she's still here. Because we're losing way too many of our celebrities this year. Really over the span of like the last 5 years. It's been crazy. So we want to definitely give them their love and their adoration while they still here. But Auntie Patty still is messy as hell. But shoot, when you live to be 80 years old, you can do that. She deserved that title and she should wear it proudly, okay? If you have made it this far, please do not forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. And I will see y'all in the next video. And I promise I will not leave y'all hanging for this long, okay? My name is Cree, and y'all be easy.